Hey folks, Doc here. Happy Sunday, or at least as happy as Sunday can be, knowing damn good and well it leads to Monday and going back to work. As you can hear, it's raining, and as you can see, I'm shooting under a canopy because the shop's a disaster right now. I've been working on stuff. I've been working on Boss Haas, and today I'm going to give you an update on the Boss Haas project. Stick around. This rain sure isn't helping my situation. Anyways, there she is as she sits right now. The name of the game this round of work was making stuff fit. Primarily hood, fenders, all that stuff. And trying to figure out the bumper and all that. We'll get into that in a minute. Just give you a bit of an overall look here without getting myself too wet, because I got to step out of the canopy to shoot this far back. As you can see, I've got a little bit more clearance to the tires, and I'm not quite done yet. You can see it's fairly tight there, and I did wind up bringing the back of the fender up about 1 inch. As you can see, it does appear a little bit tilted forward. I'll give you the detail on that in a second. On the other side, I've actually got the tires spaced out about 1.25 inches or so. I managed to get my hands on some wheel spacers. It's kind of half-ass on there because I need longer lug nuts, longer studs and different lug nuts and all that, so it's not really on particularly well. But as you can see, I've got a fair bit of clearance there. And what that's done for me is it's pretty much evened out the front and rear track width. It's pretty close. So what's going to happen there is if I do a dock locker type of deal where I put in a live axle through the transaxle and get rid of the half shafts and the differential, then I can set my wheel spacing kind of like this. And if I wind up welding the diff or something like that, which I'm not sure yet, then I can use the wheel spacers. Either way, I kind of like it with the tires out that far. Let me back up a bit and get wet for a second. And you can see on the left-hand side of your screen there, that's with the tire spaced out. I like that look. All right, so we're just going to lift this up a little bit and show you what I did here to lift the fenders up. The seat pivot, all I did was I basically cheated it. This was down here, flipped upside down. All I did was cut it out, flip it over, weld it back on, and then fill in the difference with some 16 gauge steel sheet, which is pretty close to the material that they used. Pretty straightforward, really. All right, so there's the lift from the backside. It's not quite finished up yet, but it's almost there. Nothing to it. Cut it out, flip it over, weld it on, fill it in with some plate. No big deal. Now, of course, I had the seat hard mounted, and that kept my butt down nice and low, which is something that I appreciated from a center of gravity perspective. However, that being said, would have made for a pretty rough ride. So I've thrown together a quick and easy seat suspension, and all that consisted of is the seat mount brackets from one of my Honda lawn tractors, as a matter of fact, and just a little cross member that I made between the two, and that was part of a skid plate from an old ATV. Just zapped it between the two and drilled a couple of holes for the seat bolts, and away you go. Nothing to it, but it's sprung now, and my back should really appreciate that. Oh, yeah, the steering wheel. Got that from Patrick Cloud while I was down in West Virginia. Thanks, Patrick. That's an awesome wheel. It's going to look great on this thing. All I had to do was basically weld the hub on and bolt her down. I'm sure as I've circled around this thing, you've noticed some details in the hood that were not there before. You see a cutout here, some screws, and you guessed it, I stole my own idea from Fugazi. And presto bingo, the hood opens in a fashion that is functional for me. The reason, of course, that I made the hood open more like an automotive hood is for the same reason I did it on Fugazi, which was bumpers and stuff. I didn't want to have the grill tilting forward and getting in the way of other things and whatever, and I'll get to the grill in a second. But basically, yeah, I did the same thing as Fugazi. I made a cutout along the hood, and I've got this strip of metal here for the hood to land on and sit flush with the grill where I cut it. And just back here, just tucked in there, you can see I've got some hinges that I swiped off an old toolbox that I had kicking around instead of running off to the store for a pair of lousy hinges. And that's pretty straightforward. It is what it is. There's not much to explain there. And prop rod's just a piece of steel 1/4 inch stock. Not sure the prop rod's actually going to land on the intake like that, but it was a convenient place to put it for the moment. And then what I did is I made a couple of struts for the hood to brace to the suspension tower, and then down low, and I'll get to more detail in a minute, I did have to raise the bottom of the hood up about 1 inch, primarily for the hood to clear up here. And now things sit right, and the hood just barely touches that decomp lever. Not enough to actually change its function or to make it stay on. So we managed to get the hood to fit. Everything sits right. I'm pretty happy with that. By now I'm sure you've noticed the gas tank, which I think is a Craftsman tank. I know there's guys that know a lot more about the various factory lawn tractors than I do. I tend not to dwell on a lot of details. What's Craftsman, what's Murray, what's this, what's that. Whatever. I've got a pile of tanks kicking around, and this one was the only one that I could really get to sit down low enough to clear the hood. As you can see, the cap is below the hood level, and it's sitting on top of the suspension tower cross brace, which is what I needed to accomplish. With some trimming, I could have fitted in that space under the hood there, but filling it would have been harder, and I just didn't like it there. It wasn't working for me. So I just tossed together a couple of brackets. As you can see, the screws don't match, and that's okay because that's still in mock-up. Got to do a little bit of bracing. But that tank should have a sufficient capacity. It's got to be a good gallon or so with this diesel engine to keep me going for a while. Being as efficient as they are, I should be good to go for a pretty long stretch on that size tank. Now, having just done this hood mod for a second time, I thought I might give you a little bit of a tip, some tips and tricks on how to do this. I did it the same way, pretty much the same way on Fugazi, but I kind of refined the technique a little bit this time. When you've got the hood and grill as one piece and you want to separate them, obviously by the time everything is said and done, let me just get that prop rod up, you want them to align half decently when it's closed. And I still have a slight bit of massaging. This metal piece under here is standing up just a little bit on this side, but as you can see, I've got about a 1/16 of an inch gap, and I can close that with an adjustment. But the stuff's going to flop all over the place if you don't basically do what I did. And here's what I did. I had the bottom of the hood, the grill rather, mounted solidly where it needed to be. And then what I did at what is to become the hinge end is I ran a screw down into an inconspicuous location, and you guys could use your hinge locations to hide them later, whatever the case may be, and I ran a screw down into there. So now the thing's bolted down solid. Then what I did, you probably can't see this on the camera, but you'll get a chance to see it, is I made these 2 little braces that come forward from the strut tower and bolted the grill shell on both sides. So now the grill is bolted on 4 points, and it's held firmly as to where it's going to be. That's where it's going to sit, that's where it's going to stay. We're happy with that. Then we can carefully mark our lines, cut the thing out, and the grill's not going anywhere. And the hood is still sitting where you left it because you've got the screw in the other end. And then from there, you can line your hinges up with the hood still screwed down, and by the time you throw everything together, nothing has shifted. So there you go, there's your little tip on how to do that. Alright, so with the camera down real low here, I'll show you what I've got going on. I've got this Harbor Freight Badland 2,500 pound winch with the synthetic wire rope that I got from Doug Fackler as part of my ATLTF 2016 prize winnings. Again, thank you, Doug. You're going to be seeing more of this as the build progresses, obviously. This is the one that works on a keychain remote, and of course having it on a keychain remote is all fine and good until the remote fails, you drop the remote, you lose the remote, the battery dies, whatever the case may be, and there's no hard switch. And Doug did a video, his YouTube channel is Keystone Motorsports, and the link will be in the video description below, of a wired switch kit, an actuation setup that you can do on this thing so that if you don't want to use the remote or can't use the remote, you've got switches at hand. Doug also provided me with the components for this kit, so I'll be doing that mod as well. Anyways, we've got the Badlands winch from Harbor Freight, we've got the winch mounting plate, and the aluminum Hosfair lead that is prescribed for the synthetic wire rope. Now what I did is, obviously you can't see on the bottom angle right now, but all I did was I zapped the winch plate right to the front of the frame. It has yet to be enforced. I haven't done that yet. Like I said, this particular round of work was all about fitting, what's going to fit where. So I zapped the plate on and I said it's good there. You know, I checked my steering, the tire's not going to hit the backside of the winch. That's all good. I'm happy with the placement. From there, I needed some kind of a bumper, and this is what I've got going on right here. And what this is the front bumper assembly modified from a 99 or 2000 Yamaha Wolverine 4x4 ATV. And I had to do some hacking and whacking. I welded a piece of pipe underneath the winch plate for the bottom mounts, and at the top I had to cut, I don't know, 6 or 8 inches of tubing out and zap it back together again. And then I've just got it bolted right to the suspension tower on both sides. And it just happens to use the exact same mounting point as the grill does on the inside of that. So that worked out really well for me. It's quite solid. I'm not concerned about it going anywhere. I'm pretty happy with that. So there's your view from the front. It looks pretty beefy. It's a nice bumper. It'll do the job. And you can still see the wheel horse grill for what it is, which is a topic I wanted to bring up with you. Let me go get that thing. This here was part of my ATLTF 2016 winnings as well, part of the prize package. And I'm trying to decide whether I want to use this, whether I can use it. I can get this mounted in here and kind of get the full Baja look out of it, but it does sort of detract from the wheel horse grill. So it's either use this and wire up the lights and then just put a block off plate or something in where the factory headlights were. Option B, take the lights out of this, use this as an upper bumper extension and put LEDs in here, or leave this thing out entirely and then just do an LED headlight. I'll be looking to the comments down below. Make a comment. Let me know if you think that you'd like to see this thing in place for the full-on Baja look, or leave it out so that it looks just a little bit more wheel horse. I am looking for your opinion. Let me have it. By the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't once again thank Mr. Modified for building and providing that grill hoop with the lights in it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. As you've seen, I've had a little bit of difficulty shooting here today, trying to get the camera angles, you know, reasonable, while keeping myself, the tractor, and the camera under this little 10x10 awning, just to keep from getting completely drenched and destroying yet another camera. You guys, I'm sure, saw that video where I lost one camera. I don't feel like losing another one. Anyways, so there's the situation. This particular round of work, as it were, that I accomplished between yesterday and this morning was all about fitment and just getting things where they're gonna go, or I figure they can go, so that I can continue to build around it. And I've still got to do some sort of footboard thing, because I got to be able to set my feet down so that I can lean forward and climb hills and stuff without flipping over. That pretty much is Full Metal Fab's trick, not mine. I don't feel like flipping this big heavy pig. Anyways, yeah, I got to do some footboards and some bracing to go with that. Some kind of cargo rack, something that I need to, you know, be able to carry a few things on the trail, including the camera equipment and a cooler and whatever the case may be. And then once that's all said and done, I can start working on controls and functions. And then once that's all done, I can blow this sucker apart and paint it. Paint. There's something I wanted to talk to you about briefly. In the last video, I put out the call for you guys to give me your opinions on paint schemes and colors. And there was basically 3 really popular opinions. And one of them was lime green, and I'm still considering it, but I've been to Canadian Tire, I've been to Home Depot and a couple other places, and the only green that I'm seeing that's reasonable in terms of the kind of pop that I want is actually a fluorescent green, which is all fine and good, but you know, it requires more material. I've got to do an undercoat in white, and it's just a big pain in the hoop, but I might still do it. The second most popular opinion probably would have been red, because this is a wheel horse. If I do this red, it's not going to be just spray it in red and walk away. I want to make this machine pop to some degree or another, and I got to figure out how to do that with red. The third option that's come up that is very popular by opinion is to basically keep the patina as it is. Maybe clear coat it or oil it to protect it and just leave it looking kind of ratty or as a survivor. And it's not a bad idea, and I gotta admit the look is kind of conducive to that, but you know, I built the Diesel Weasel. I think I'm gonna be starting another rat rod project in a little while. I've got some parts and pieces built up in an old Springfield tractor and stuff like that. And although I dig rats, I gotta feel it. I'm not feeling rat on this one. Not sure what I'm feeling, but I don't think it's gonna be rat. So I believe she's gonna get. In the meantime, do me a favor, pop into the comments section there and let me know if you think if I should do that lighting unit up front there or just leave the bumper as it is. And you know, if you want to continue to weigh in on paint, go ahead and do that, and any other ideas you may have. One of the other things that I'm working on is I got to try and find some softer coils for the front end of this thing. It's pretty stiff up front, and from my research, that seems to be an old Polaris thing, is a stiff-ass front suspension, and you know, obviously I do want some flex out of this. So, there's where we're at. Things are pretty good, right? Right. So, until next time, thanks for tuning into Sprocket's Garage on YouTube. Take care of yourself. Let's just do a little experiment here and see who actually sticks around after the videos to see if I'm going to stick something in. There's a little Easter egg for you. We'll cover this later. Camera out of the rain while I'm filming this. And I've got a beer sitting on my hood. That's kind of bad. I just put that on the trailer hitch, didn't see a thing.